Man, oh man, man, oh man. I love the fall. I really, truly do. I'm sitting in my garage. I'm really close to my furnace, and I'm sitting here recording the intro for this week's podcast, and the furnace fires up behind me, and I'm thinking, wait a minute. It's October 1st. This is premature. But the fact is, well, it's not. Not in the Pacific Northwest. It's time, man. It's time. Lots of yellow and orange leaves on the ground, dead animals laying in the street. Guess that's not really funny, but it seems to happen in the fall here. Dead animals all over the roads. It's crazy. I don't know if they're, if they're down getting food, kind of like deer and bear do before they sort of relax, if you will, for the winter. But the Northwest is an interesting place this time of year. It starts to get dark early. It starts to get a little dismal, a little uncomfortable. And yet there's a beautiful romanticism. I live just outside of North Bend, Washington, and if you've seen the TV show Twin Peaks from the early '90s, you know exactly where I live. That is pretty much my hometown, and it's a beautiful and yet sometimes dreary place. Fortunately for me, I have my podcast and I have my friends and my family. So this week's podcast is with Sean Flaharty, a good friend of mine from Ohio. And Sean is the sort of figurehead, the showrunner, if you will, for Eyes of Freedom, which is a traveling memorial for the Lima Company. And this is a group of gentlemen who fought over in Iraq after September 11th, and the majority of the company died over there. And this is a traveling memorial similar to the traveling wall that memorializes the Vietnam losses. But you'll have to listen to the podcast to hear the details behind it. Sean is a really great guy. He and I met of all places because we are roller coaster fanatics, and we met at an amusement park a number of years ago and became fast friends. He's a great guy, really funny, former professional metal guitar player, just a super killer guy, tons of fun, very, very literate and thoughtful and kind. And he came and visited my family a few years ago, and we spent a lot of time, got to know each other really well. And anyway, I thought he'd be a great guest. I think you guys need to hear the story behind the Lima Memorial and hearing what Sean has to offer. And a few things. This is probably a more tangential conversation than most. This one literally does go all over the place. I think we were just having too much fun. Also, we talk of all things about Black Lives Matter, and I know a lot of people might, I don't know what, I don't want to use the word shy away, but typically refrain from talking about heated political discussions, especially when we're talking about color or the murder of individuals. It's a really, really tough conversation for that brief period of time. But let me be very, very clear. Rob Jones, me, okay? I believe very, very firmly that all people matter. And I hate it when people say Black Lives Matter or Blue Lives Matter or All Lives Matter. It really is sort of saying that, well, wait a minute, my life counts too. And the answer is no, duh. But I do understand, I'm not a black man, but I do understand that it is a different thing. What they are encountering is different, at least in this country. The legacy and the history and the heritage of the, if you will, the white thumb on black people across this country, all minorities, not just blacks, but black people, Hispanic, you name it. There is white privilege. I'm sorry, you don't like it, you don't have to ever listen to this podcast again. There is white privilege. And so we talk about a few things that are tough. And yes, I don't say the N-word. I use the N-word because that is the word that these people use against my black brothers. I'm not a liberal. I'm actually a hyper-conservative guy. I despise anything that puts anybody in a box, okay? I love all people. If you know me, you know I'm friends to all. I love all people. I married a Japanese woman. I dated a black woman. I mean, I've lived a very diverse life, especially for a quote unquote conservative. Point is we talk about it, and I want to give you some advance notice because we talk about it, and I think that makes people uncomfortable. Secondly, the podcast ends on a really beautiful note. I'm going to give it away because it's important for you to know. I am a huge fan of this New York band called the Hi Hi's. I think they are the band that nobody seems to know about except a select few that everybody should know about. They play beautiful, beautiful music. It's introspective and thoughtful and lovely and ethereal and gorgeous and lilting and soft and generous, and the chord structures are really intricate. It's really phenomenal music. And I met them both earlier this year for my wife and I's anniversary. We went and saw a Hi-Hi show, and it was just extraordinary. Got to stand right up front and see this amazing band. And the reason I mention that is because I want you to take a look at the show notes. I want you to click on the link to hear this band on YouTube. I want you to go find out everything you can about them. I want you to go buy their CDs on iTunes or wherever you get your digital media. This is an incredible band. They have 2 records, Open Season and Cascades. They're gorgeous. They're lovely. So check them out. With that, gosh, I don't even know the number of this. I think it's Rockstar Superhero Podcast number 14. It might be 15. I think it's 14. And this, again, is my very, very good friend. I wanted to think of his name first, Flaharty. So this is my good friend, Sean Flaharty. You know what to do. Rock on. Now here's what's cool is I'm in my own garage version of a podcast studio. So basically I'm like Mark Maron on the cheap, right? I got my furnace right there, and it's not wintertime yet, so it's not too cold in here. And yeah, I'm just set up and ready to go, and I just wanted to see my friend, and you can see me too, right? I mean,
oh, absolutely. Yep,
yeah.
I can see you.
So first things first, I got to tell everybody, so this is my very good friend, Sean Flaharty. And Sean is he's like a kindred spirit. He's like my brother in music. We have all these sort of shared friendships and shared music taste and shared hobbies. It's really cool. I mean, we're both basically like really nerdy guys, except he's way cooler than me. And he had a chance to spend some time with my family and I a few years ago, and got to witness my son get second-degree burns at Seattle Center.
That sucked. That's still one of the scariest things I've ever seen, man.
Yeah, we never did get any closure on that either. They just kind of blew it off. It was terrible.
Did you contact them after that?
Yeah. So what listeners don't know is 2 years ago. So it was 2 years ago, wasn't it? It was 2 years ago.
It was 2014.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my twin boys were a year and a half, and we went to Seattle Center, and Sean's going to tell us about what he was doing at Seattle Center, but he was there with his company, and there's this beautiful park in the middle of Seattle Center with this giant fountain, and it was a beautiful sunny day, and everything is great, and the kids are playing out in the field or in the grass field, and all of a sudden, Sean and I look over to see my son dancing. Nobody knows why, and I'm thinking he's getting stung by a bee. That's the only thing I can think of, or he's freaking out. But whatever, he's standing in the same spot and he's dancing. He's not, he's jumping up and down and, bouncing with his feet. And we go running over there and pick him up. And as soon as you pick him up, you feel his feet are super hot because he had been standing on this metal grate. Now, we all thought it was just heat on the grate, meaning the sun beating down on the grate and making the grate hot, and my son's feet were hurt. But that wasn't the case at all. It turns out that there was a steam leak underneath the grate, and it made the grating over 160 degrees. And my son was 1.5 years old. He doesn't know what to do. He just knows this hurts like hell. And he's trying to get off of it, but he doesn't know what to do. And he ended up getting second-degree burns and being just in absolute agony for like 3 days. It totally.
You flipped his feet over and they were bubbling.
Yeah. It was an unbelievably terrible experience, and it wasn't like we got to end on a handshake and a good day. It was like, okay, dude, I got to go. I got to take my kid to the hospital.
Right, and then I actually, when my staff got back, I started to walk down towards the way you were at, but you had already left. I think I had texted you or something, but I was so bummed. And then as soon as you guys left, maybe a half an hour after that, they were doing they had like a laser gun out there measuring temperature, and they put a barrier around it with all these cones and stuff. And Mike, my coworker, said, "What the hell happened? What did you guys do to cause all this commotion?" I'm like, "Hey, it wasn't us. It was them that screwed up, And they had asked me for your phone number. I think I gave it to them. I can't remember. Yeah. And then that was it. I never heard another thing about it.
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, my wife did get in contact with them, and they basically said, we see that there was this error. Our people went out there with a laser temperature or whatever gauge and said, yeah, you're right, it was very hot. But it was never, and granted, look, I'm not the guy who wants to sue everybody. I'm not litigious. I've never been that guy. I was sued years ago. I hated every second of it. I hate how I felt. I didn't want to be in the process of a suit, even if it were on the quote-unquote the good guy side, right? I just didn't want to be a part of it. And, they just they didn't blow us off, but they definitely glad-handed us hey, so I just want to make sure it's all good, and so is everything okay? And you know what I mean? They just kind of let it go away, and honestly, we didn't pursue it, but my wife was furious, like beyond furious, and if you know my wife in any way, people know she's when she's upset, she's extraordinarily upset. She's straight out of like a bad Chinese movie, you know what I mean? Where she's like, oh, like.
I remember her being quite upset.
Yeah,
and I didn't quite honestly know. I didn't know what Usually, because just in my situation, daily life, if I see something that's a little bit aggressive and stuff, I'll try to kind of diffuse it in my own way.
Yeah.
If I'm allowed to, or in a situation where I can do something. And that was one of those things where I'm like, I honestly don't know what to say or do right here because it was so quick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Well, now that we've completely bored anybody that might be listening to this, so why are we talking? Why are Sean and I talking? Well, Sean and I actually have a shared passion, shared hobby, roller coasters. We like roller coasters. And there's this super uber nerdy there's this hobby group, hobbyists. You've probably seen them on the Travel Channel and TLC, where they feature the 10 craziest roller coasters or the 10 scariest roller coasters or the 10 fastest roller coasters. And lo and behold, Sean's been on those shows. And I didn't know this until later, when I got to know him, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're that guy. So he has tales to tell. Everything from being on TV and being a nerd and being proud of it, to being very much into metal music, which he and I both have a complete passion for. Some of the same artists, Devin Townsend Project, Gojira, you name it. A lot of
X.
King's X. Oh my gosh,
seen him in 2 nights, man. I know. You told me that the other night, and I'm just like, I forgot about that. I'm like, oh my god. Yeah. So you have this thing around X around you because you have the Static X tie.
Yeah.
King's X thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of I've been on the fringes of a lot of different bands in my life, and in some ways good, some ways bad. I mean, the fact is, it's not like any one of them, quote unquote, discovered me, right, and put me in the band full time, or right. I mean, there's a lot of great musicians out there that show up at the right time. A bass player gets fired. For example, Leprous. I don't know if you're a Leprous fan at all, but
you turned me on to them this week.
Okay, and. Good.
Very, very good. Yes.
Good. I got the horns. Everybody, I got the horns. Leprous is this incredible band from Oslo, Norway, and I discovered them because of Shining, the Norwegian Blackjazz outfit. And, YouTube did one of those things that said, if you like Shining, you will like blank, right? And I checked out Leprous. Turns out that the drummer who's now playing for Shining actually was the drummer in Leprous about 3 years ago. And I listened to that music, and it's epic. I mean, it's epic. It's like a progressive metal version of Ultravox.
Yeah.
Can you are you hearing me? You know what I mean? To me, it's like Midge, who is the vocalist for Ultravox in a progressive metal band. I can't explain it. Yeah. It's really different.
You do a really good job of you do a good job of actually breaking down different, like, what did you tell me about, what's the other band? Haken? Haken, I'm sorry. Yeah, you told me, there was 3 bands you told me it sounded like, and it did.
Yeah.
As soon as I heard it, but totally original.
Yeah. Haken is another great band, and maybe I'll pull one up here when we're having a discussion. But yeah, Haken is a band from London, England, that I thought was also Norwegian. With a name like that, it had to be. It had to mean something like, I don't know, Smoky Mountain or something like that. Like in Norwegian, it turns out it's it turns out it's a made up name by a kid in London in like 1990. But anyway, Sean and I got to know each other through the coaster community, of which there is a sizable one, as nerdy as it is. And we both just really, really dig coasters. I mean, he and I have both gone in separate occasions on coaster vacations. And a few years ago, we actually met face-to-face finally. And had so much fun, we pretty much spent the next 2 days just hanging out and singing metal songs at the top of our lungs while we're riding roller coasters all day. It was awesome.
In pitch darkness, too.
In pitch darkness at Holiday World, the land of enchantment.
It was awesome. That was a fun time. We were in the same cabin, too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, well, I was poaching the cabin. So long story short, nobody needs to know because they'll be like, oh, who are these people? But I went there to spend time with one guy, and I ended up making him really mad, which I apologize, and he'll probably, I hope he'll hear this podcast actually and say, I accept your apology, Rob. But I made him very angry because admittedly I kind of took advantage of him. I didn't think about it at the time. And I ended up spending time with you and Lisa and all the other people in that cabin. And it was just, I was having so much fun. I just didn't think about the other guy. And, it was a really selfish moment. I admit it. But we had a great time.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that whole thing. So
yeah. I'm sorry, Dave. So anyway, but the reason actually Sean is on the podcast today is not because we are friends. I mean, it helps that we're friends. But Sean has a really unique life story, and especially what I would call a heart story. He's involved with a group, which I'm going to let him talk about now, and then I'm just going to ask him all sorts of questions. But I discovered this through our conversations that night at this cabin at this amusement park. He's telling me about this work he does and how impactful it is for people all over the country. And ultimately what's happened with his job, which he'll tell you about in a moment, is he's ended up on some of the coolest rock and roll stages in the world at festivals featuring what he's doing and having bands stand behind him and support that. And that is an amazing thing, and people need to know about it. And as a little sneak peek, I'm a veteran. I did not serve during the last war in Afghanistan, or I should say the current war in Afghanistan, nor did I serve in Iraq. I was in the service during the Gulf War back in the early 90s, but I was in the Navy, so I wasn't part of an actual battlefield. But that being said, I am an ex-military guy. I did 7.5 years in the Navy, and I do believe in the service, meaning the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard. And I love the heart of these people. And a lot of these guys do this job because they really have nothing else they feel they can do. And now I'm not this is not a knock on anybody who's been in the service, but I know this because of experience, that you get really three kinds of people. You get the college level guy that wants to go into the service, become an officer, and it's kind of like building his brand, building his resume, that sort of thing. Then you get the enlisted guy like myself who is kind of not sure what he wants to do with his life, knows he can probably get a good college education out of it, maybe learn a trade, and take it with him into the real world. The last part is the guy who comes from the struggling community or family, may not have much education, and needs to have a place to go where he can develop a skill, earn a decent living, and again grow through education. These are really the three types of people, at least that I've discovered in the service. And but what happens is the guys with the lesser education, a lot of times, because they don't have the education, end up enlisting in ground force type, whatever. I can't even think of the term at the moment. But they end up being grunts. They end up being the guys with the rifles out in the field, and they're the ones that are getting shot at. And so they're risking their lives because they love this country. They don't feel like they necessarily have a lot to offer. And maybe shoot me down if I'm wrong, Sean, but my experience was the guys that came from the really troubled homes, the troubled neighborhoods, were the guys that were the gunners. And it's because they felt like they had something to prove. They didn't feel that they had the education to do more of the tech-based jobs that are in the service. What would be currently IT type jobs or nuclear jobs or engineering type jobs. They did the hard, the dirty work, the mechanical gigs, the blue collar gigs, and then they go to Afghanistan, and half of them don't come home.
Well, I mean, I think it all depends on what's going on in the world, because all the Marines that I know and that are part of this company that is actually part of what I do for a living is most of them went in because of 9/11.
Okay.
They were all, I mean, some of them were college grads. Some of them were just like, had everything. They were IT guys. My friend that's on those portraits, which I'll talk about in a minute, he was an incredibly intelligent guy doing IT and computer work. But 9/11 hit, and that shook our country up so much that a lot of them were just dropped everything in their future and went ahead and did that.
Wow.
So I think it all depends on the situation. But I think you're right on, definitely. I mean, there's so many different avenues of why people join the military that I don't think we'd ever know fully every single one.
Yeah.
I didn't serve myself, but by the time I did want to go in, I was too old.
Yeah. Well, so let me say this before you tell the story, because I really want you to tell the story, and I don't want to interrupt you.
Oh, no worries.
But I actually have to apologize, because I know that people that are listening to this interview are going, no, Rob, there's a lot more. There's a lot more. And you totally just put me in my place, and that's a good thing. And here's why I explained it how I explained it a second ago.
Sure.
It's my experience, because I went in during the end of the Cold War, and economically, the world was a very different place.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very different place. And, I don't know what the ratios are in regards to race, religion, education level now. I don't. But in 1987, it was like one white guy, 8 black guys, one somebody else, right? Asian, right. Hispanic, and that was how it was. So by default, the weird cultural thing was the white guys became the leaders. It's seriously the truth. And now I hope it's changed, because I remember thinking, this isn't okay. You know what I mean? I felt really uncomfortable being in a group of 80 guys, and there's like 10 white guys. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am not where I should be. You know what I mean? It was a very weird. And then the drill instructors automatically put me in a position of authority. And I remember thinking, well, that's not good. It was just a really, really weird thing. And again, most of well, everybody else except basically the white guys had come from broken homes. I remember everybody telling me, I don't know my dad. I know my mom, and I'm in the service because my mom wanted me off the streets. This guy over here, we actually had a guy arrested in boot camp because this shows how much the world has changed. There was no way to track it back then, but back then, people would sell drugs. They would, do illegal things. They would steal cars, etc. And then they join the service to get away from getting arrested.
Oh, wow.
It's the truth. It really happened. And I know because it happened in my company. We're in boot camp maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and all of a sudden the doors pop open. The drill instructor calls everybody to attention, and then they point at one guy, and all the cops, all the MPs come over, and they grab the guy, push him up against the wall, and then arrest him. They cuff him, and they literally, and they are what do you call it, police? They're military police, but then they have I don't know, it can't be FBI or anything like that crazy, but it was definitely somebody who wasn't military, and they were there to read him his rights and to tell him what he was accused of. And it turns out that he was a drug dealer from Miami, and he had skipped bail. And I don't even know how it's possible to join the military and for them to think that they wouldn't find you. But it took them 4 weeks to catch up to him in boot camp, that he basically skipped bail and skipped town and joined the service to hide from a drug charge. Yeah, and they took him away and put him in prison.
Wow.
Yeah, and they
I've
really
never
did
heard
it.
anything like that. Wow.
Yeah, it really happened. I don't know what it's like anymore, but I mean, it happened. And of course, the other aspect of it was, God forbid if you're gay, God forbid if you've had a drug like marijuana or anything in your body in the last 24 hours or 12, not 24 hours, 24 weeks. I mean, it was brutal it was just so old school. There was you had to fit into the stereotype or you were out. You were not here.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, sorry for the aside, but that's the world I came from, where you were the oddball. The white guy was the oddball, and everybody else was pretty much, uneducated. And it sounds terrible. It has nothing to do with color, but it had everything to do with education. You had a few educated guys and a whole bunch of uneducated guys, and they were there because they had nothing else to offer. It kind of
reminds me of Stripes.
Yeah,
Stripes.
Yeah, a lot like I was like John Candy.
Oh boy. Yeah. Wow.
So tell the story. Tell everybody about what you're doing, what everything's called, how you stumbled into this, and because I think it's extraordinary. And when I saw the actual. I don't know what you'd call it, presentation.
Exhibit.
The exhibit, thank you. When I saw the exhibit, I teared up, and I didn't know these guys. It just tore my heart in half. It was an amazing experience. So,
well, so I work for something called the Eyes of Freedom, and I've been part of it since the very, very beginning. So let me start from the beginning, I guess, and I'll try to make this as brief as possible. But as you know, I could talk to you for years about this. But
please do it. Do whatever you want.
Okay. So I worked for Nationwide Insurance here in Columbus, Ohio. I was there for 15 years, and between the years 99 and I think 2001. One of my friends I worked with, who was a security guard there, was named Justin Hoffman, and he was a Marine. And, we were really good friends, worked the same shift, go to lunch all the time. Really, really cool dude. And in 2000, he had left Nationwide and went to Cardinal Health in Columbus. And then right after he was at Cardinal Health, his reserve unit here in Columbus called Lima Company, got called to serve. So he went over, he trained with his Marines. He actually re-upped because he wanted to be with the guys that he was training with, even though his 4 years was up. So he went to Iraq, and I think they got there in either late January or February of 2005. And they were kicking butt. The whole unit, they were actually called Lucky Lima at one point because they were just kicking so much ass. And they ended up when the bad things happened to them, they happened on such a grand scale, and it made a lot of headlines. So, for instance, there was 2 large roadside bombs, one on May 11th, 2005, and one on August 3rd, 2005, that killed, I think, 20 of those guys. And
It's insane.
so 6 were killed on May 11th, and then on August 3rd, the largest recorded IED that we know about killed 14 of those guys, and including my friend Justin Hoffman. Oh. So obviously when I found out, I actually found out through the newspaper, because you remember when everybody had AOL Instant Message. That was everyone's text back then.
Yeah.
And I had just gotten from, a coaster trip out to Salt Lake City, and I flew back, and I got home, and I turned my computer on, and I had my AOL Instant Message set up, so when I would turn my computer on, my IM wouldn't come up, because I was tired of just turning on my computer and just getting, bleep, 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 all these people want to chat.
Yeah.
And I turned my computer on, and my AOL Instant Message came up automatically, and I said, oh, great, something's wrong, it's just setting changed or something. But what was odd is the only person that was highlighted on my buddy list was Hoff, USMC, my buddy Justin Hoffman. And I thought, well, I'll get him tomorrow. He would usually sign in for a couple days at a time. And then the next morning I got up and he had signed off, and that was the day he was killed.
Oh, man.
And so that freaked me so bad. It haunted me for weeks. And his funeral was August 13th, 2005. And it actually, I tell everybody that was the day my life changed forever. That was kind of like the second chapter of my life starting. And what I mean by that is, as I was driving home from his funeral, it was the best way I can describe that. It was the most horrific, beautiful thing I've ever experienced in my life. It was the saddest I've been, but it was the most proud I've ever been of a human being. And I'm driving home, and the only way I can describe it was there was a Y in my life. Literally, I was driving up to make a decision, and I was certain, without a shadow of a doubt, that this left path was to go into the Marines. 100%.
Wow.
Never been more, felt, it just felt like it was supposed to happen. The right side was totally scary. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't see it. Let's not think about this right side. Let's concentrate on this left side. So about a week later, I was talking to a recruiter in Columbus who had stopped in. He was dropping stuff off at a pizza place I was eating at, and started talking to him. And one of the, I said, I think I need to go into the Marines. And given now this is 2005, and one of the first questions he asked me is, how old are you? And I was 34, I think, in 2005. And he looks at me and takes his pamphlet back and says, you're too old for the Marines. He says, there's waivers you can sign.
Yeah.
But he did exactly opposite of what he's supposed to do. He talked me out of doing it. And I was crushed. I was crushed. I was certain that I'm supposed to do that side. And I don't know how many months later. Well, no, actually, about a month later, I was in Japan for a coaster trip. And while I was on that trip, and this is where it kind of gets a little strange, but you can totally relate to this and understand. One of the days I was on my trip in Japan, I had an extremely real dream where I was at a base in Iraq at night, and I was talking to a Marine, and he said, do you want to say hi to your buddy Justin again? And I said, absolutely. And he said, well, there's a catch. The catch is you have to feel the same sorrow you felt at his funeral for one full day. And I said, I don't care. Yeah. And he points over to this fence, and there's Hoffman standing there. So I go over and hug him and talk to him, and he didn't say much, but I just said, everybody's so proud of you. You changed my life. And then I woke up crying in Japan.
Too. You're going to make me cry now just telling me.
Sorry.
No, it's intense.
And so I was crying the whole day. And I don't know if you know who Jim Raymar and Matt Bakulis are, but I was on that trip with them. And the whole day they were like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, I can't tell you. So, and then I had another one the day I got back from Japan. It was even more insane. And so that inspired me to make a video in his memory, which I did. And I uploaded it. I don't even think it was YouTube back thing. I think it was just called Google Video. Does that sound right? So there was something. It was before YouTube.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
And I threw it online and said, okay, that's my way of kind of giving back, that I know there's something bigger. As a matter of fact, somebody that replied to the video said, thank you for doing this. And I said, my life's about to change, and I'm going to be doing something in a much bigger way, but I don't know what that is yet. It was just, you just felt it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the very, I don't know how long it was, probably maybe a couple months, I would say. Soon after, I guess, I went to Google it to see if it'd show up in Google, the name of the video, just curious. And my video didn't show up. An artist named Anita Miller, her blog showed up, where she announced she was going to be creating something called the Lima Company Memorial. And it was life-size portraits of all the Marines from Lima Company that were killed from my area, and including my buddy. And I was floored. I was like, oh my God, somebody's doing something. This is awesome. So I sent a reply to the blog just saying, thank you for doing this, whoever you are. And she immediately responded and said, you need to come to my studio, which was 20 minutes from where I lived, and we need to talk. And it took me 2 weeks to get the courage to go up there. As a matter of fact, what made me do it is I was supposed to meet the European Coaster Club at Wyandotte Lake, which is this little park in Columbus. And I went up there, and they had already left, and her studio was 10 minutes from Wyandotte Lake. So I ended up calling her and saying, hi, do you remember me? But when I went over there and met her, she was looking for somebody to document the process of her creating this exhibit. She hadn't even started yet. And since I do some photography and video work just for fun, I said, I can be that guy.
Yeah.
And I have a personal tie to this. So that's what got me originally started. But she changed my life. She told me the day I met her. But I should say that in her mind, other than the families that serve with those guys and the guys themselves that came home, she didn't think anybody would relate to this on an emotional level. And I kept on telling her, you're wrong. This is going to just affect so many people. And she changed my life. She told me that day, you don't know it yet, but this is what you're supposed to do. Yeah. And I have this engineering mind that if I can't figure out how something works, I go mad to reverse engineer it to figure it out. I prefer being like self-taught instead of learning from a book, so to speak. I mean, even like playing guitar and stuff, that's all stuff that I kind of did on my own. Well, this has proven to me that you're not always meant to know why. You just have to go with the flow. So just as she had a vision herself of this exhibit. She saw it opening at the Ohio State House. She saw it being thrown on a truck, and the truck going to another place. All this really specific stuff, so she drew it out, and that's how she got started. And just as she had seen in her vision, on Memorial Day 2008, we debuted these paintings, and I should probably explain that. They're life-size portraits of the fallen Marines from Lima Company, painted. They stand 8.5 feet tall, each of them. There's 22 Marines, 1 Navy corpsman, and then there's a smaller painting. It came a little bit later, but she started with my friend Justin. If she would have painted anybody else first, they wouldn't be nearly as big, because he was about 6'7" in real life.
Wow.
So now it travels the country full time, and what's really important is the reason it travels, and it's successful at traveling, is because of what it stands for. It goes way beyond the faces you see in those portraits, and it truly travels for anybody that's ever served, including you, Rob. I mean, thank you for your service, number one. I know I've told you that before, but this is every bit about you as it is with those fallen, and that's why it's so powerful. We do about 40 events a year, and I know you and I had talked. You had asked me when I was in Seattle, you were like, well, how long do you think this will go? And for what it stands for, this has the ability to travel long after I'm gone.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're already booking into 2018 now, and it's so to get kind of into the fun side of it. And I don't mean to be a bummer, but that's the real, how real the story gets. But as far as what you were mentioning about the concerts and stuff, so it started turning heads as soon as Mike Straley, who I travel with, and Mike is the only other full-time employee other than myself with this organization. And Mike was actually on one of the vehicles that exploded, the May 11th vehicle. The 6 guys surrounding him in the vehicle are on those paintings. So he was almost killed himself. As a matter of fact, we just found out a couple months ago that they pretty much thought he was gone. and they threw him on a helicopter with, the deceased and stuff like that. And he came back, and this has been very, very therapeutic and personal for him. And his story alone just kind of skyrocketed everything that we're doing. So I don't know if you're familiar with it out there, but there's a huge 3-day concert here in Columbus every year called Rock on the Range.
Yeah.
And there's probably 100 bands, probably even more. I'm not sure how many bands, but just from connections we've made and bands that have seen us, we were on stage in front of 40,000 fans with the band Pop Evil playing their song Trenches, which kind of has a military background, with the rapper DMC. And every time, we're still close with those guys. And as a matter of fact, that was such a huge moment for them, which blew us away, that on their making of album of the last album on YouTube, they claimed that the career highlight for them was bringing us on stage with them. And it showed footage. So we've met a lot of people. We've had them in front of Gary Sinise. I've taken the singer Kelly Clarkson around to see them. We just never know who's going to be there. We were in Nashville a couple weeks ago, and there were several people that said you didn't know it, but there was probably country stars that came in and seen it, but they were so kind of low key.
Right.
So I have no idea. At one point, I did think I saw Billy Ray Cyrus, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, you might have. I'll tell you. Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah. Yeah. Please do.
So I will tell you. When you were in Seattle a couple years ago, I came down to the Seattle Center to see this, and I'm an emotional, heart on my sleeve guy. And I'm not afraid of crying. I'm not. I'll cry with the best of them, man. I was not prepared for Eyes of Freedom. It was. It's actually even hard to talk about. It was devastating. It's so funny because part of me, anybody who knows me knows I'm a really sarcastic, snarky, not mean-spirited, but I'm right on the edge, right? I love really, I have a very dark sense of humor. And when you told me you were doing Eyes of Freedom, I remember going online and looking at photos and going, well, it looks like a little kid made them. I know this sounds terrible, but my initial response was, that really doesn't look very, I don't know, professional, whatever. It just didn't hit me. It hit me in a bad way. And I was like, oh man, I don't want to say anything about this. And, and I'm going to support it because I believe in the mission, right? I love the mission, but I was like, I don't want to, I don't know, man. You know what I mean? And so you said, hey, Rob, we're coming out to Seattle. And I was like, wow, this is a great time to see Sean and hang out and have my son's feet burned. But I come down there and I find you and I take a walk through, and I'll tell you, it's literally like, it's hard to explain, but anybody who's sort of been around this knows what I'm talking about. There's an intangible thing inside of every one of us that is so highly emotional that when you walk into this, it's hallowed. It's like a traveling funeral for all these men. And first, it's insane. I don't even know these guys, but just my memory of it breaks my heart because I walk in, I look down, and I see their boots. And then I look up at their faces, and I'm so mad. I'm so mad because these young guys who had the whole world in front of them died for I don't even know what anymore. And I was looking at the boots and I was looking for blood. It just sucked so much, and I felt, but at the same time, I was so proud. I was so proud, and I turned around, I looked over my shoulders, and I made sure nobody was looking because I didn't want anybody to see, and I saluted them, and that can be between me and God, but the fact is I want to share that because I saluted them and I felt so proud of them. And I don't know if I'm brainwashed because I was in the service. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know if it's because I grew up in a different generation. You and I are close to the same age. I know I'm older than you, but I don't know if it's from a world gone by, right? I don't know if my mindset is educated, white, middle class. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is that makes me feel the way I feel. I think a lot of it is that my father served. Both my grandfathers served during World War II. My father served right after Korea, served in Europe during peacetime, and then and then I went in and during the kind of the height of the Cold War. I didn't expect to see any action. I mean, I was in the Navy, I was going to go on the sub force and do that whole thing. But it didn't change the fact that I had massive pride in my gut. And I get it. When you get out of boot camp, you are brainwashed. You are. You're gung-ho. You're all for the whatever this country stands for. And I know that's changed over the years. I get that. I went in right in the height, I went in during the Iran-Contra affair. When I was in the airport flying to boot camp, Oliver North was on CNN being grilled by senators about the Iran-Contra affair. And so it was a very hyper-political environment. Everybody wondered if, still to that day, if Russia was going to bomb us someday. I mean, it was still a thought. It was still a concern. The Soviet Union existed. It was a scary place. But, when I came out of boot camp, I went to sub school after boot camp. And I'm sorry for this long aside, but it's important to share.
It's good. It's good.
I came out of boot camp and I was at sub school, and while we're waiting for enough people to come out of boot camp so they can, fill an actual class full of future submariners, you're waiting on base and you're doing these odd jobs, and every night we had time, so every night we would go do something different. And the first night we went down to the theater on base and saw a terrible movie, The Wraith with Charlie Sheen. It's the worst movie maybe ever made, but here's the point. Before they play the movie, they play the national anthem. And when you get out of boot camp, the first couple weeks, you're not allowed to wear civilian clothes. It's just they wean you, if you will, from the boot camp mentality. And so for the first couple weeks, you're walking around base in your Navy uniform, right? And so we're there in our navy whites. It's the fall. It's before you're wearing the blues, and we're there in our little ice cream man outfit. And we're in the theater, and the national anthem comes on. And everybody stands up, takes their cover off, puts it over their heart, and stands there and just either quiet or sings, whatever. But you all did it, and you couldn't wait to do it. And the thing that was amazing is, I cried. I cried. Now, I don't cry the national anthem anymore. I don't. It doesn't mean I don't love this country or I don't believe in the national anthem or whatever. I just don't do it. I was definitely, brainwashed from boot camp. I mean, it's part of it, right? That severe, massive pride. But when I saw those portraits of those men, those giant portraits that looked incredible in person, they didn't look like they were drawn in crayon. They didn't look like they were made by a little kid. They really are incredible. They're incredible works of art. And it cut me to the quick. It tore my heart out. Just busted it all up. And I just can't encourage people enough to seek this exhibit out when it comes into your town. Because according to Sean, they're booked for at least the next 2 years. And find Sean,
Yeah, just eyesofreedom.org. I can be reached on there. So, but I'm telling you, I mean, I remember you walking in. I was actually in the exhibit when you walked in, and I only saw the side of your face. And believe it or not, we see reaction like your reaction almost every day from a veteran.
I believe it.
And you said in a really shaky voice, and I'll never forget this, I can't do this right now. And you walked out.
Yeah.
I mean, after you'd spent a couple, I don't know how long you were in there, but, and then I went out there and you were visibly shaken. And, I said, hey, man, I'm not going to force you. And that's the one thing that's very important for us to know. We're not going to force it to anybody because everybody has to take their own thing. And just to give you an example, like you were talking about, you've definitely got military in your blood. And my father's a Vietnam vet, Navy guy, but he saw action. He was what they call a brown water veteran.
Okay.
And growing up, he didn't talk much about Vietnam. My brother and I were not allowed to ask him. And so growing up, we probably didn't understand my dad like most kids my age.
Sure.
And I took him to the studio in 2007 when she was painting these, and he opened up like a book. And every time he's around him, he opens up. And I asked him just last month, I said, I don't know if you realize you're doing that, but every time you're around these, you really open up and I get to hear more about your Vietnam experience. And he said, I didn't know a single one of these men in these portraits, but these are my guys, and I feel safe around them. So, and to add to what you're saying, the next step. And I should first go back and tell you that without a shadow of a doubt, that's that right path that I was thinking about that I couldn't see, that was scary.
Yeah.
I know what that is now. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And there's a Army vet we met in last year when we were in a little town called Hinckley, Minnesota, and we were on a Minnesota tour last year. And this Army vet, the same thing. He walked in for 5 minutes, just said, "No way, I can't do this," and stormed out of the building. And then sometimes we see them come back and they stay longer, and then they'll come back. It's like baby steps.
Yeah.
So he came back in. He informed us that he has lost 6 of the guys he has served with in the first Gulf War to suicide in the last 2 years. It's a horrible, horrible thing. 22 a day, veterans. So we knew we needed to do something. So the artist that painted those portraits is actually working on a bronze sculpture right now. It's going to be called Silent Battle. And Brian Zimmerman, the Army vet we met, is actually the one that modeled for it, gave the imagery for it. And he told me in last December, and he calls me every week, but he told me in last December that he was literally about to commit suicide, and our exhibit saved his life because it spoke to him in a way, in the same way that you just said. So now that that's happening, we hope we can save other lives. We don't know. We haven't even scratched the surface of how powerful this thing is. I'm kind of merely a gear or a wheel to get it to the next person.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you right now, I have a lifetime worth of experiences. Even if I just highlighted one, like your experience seeing that, not many people get to see that in their life. Yeah. See somebody get that attached and emotional to something like that. And I see, I don't know how, I wouldn't even be able to guess, but it's a very, very powerful thing. I'm proud that, I get to experience it. It can be hectic at times. It really can. There's a lot of travel involved, obviously. But anytime you get tired, anytime you get frustrated, or you're not seeing eye to eye with your team, what usually diffuses those moods is you just go and look in those paintings and those guys, and then
remind it all over again why you're doing it. Yeah.
I feel more connected to my friend now than I did before he was alive. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, that's such a gift too. It's obviously a bittersweet pill to swallow. And, I don't know, I'm a man of faith. I mean, we've talked about this, and I get it. Look, I don't think people have to believe in God to be touched by this. But I absolutely believe that, here, I'll explain this with a metaphor with my father. Most listeners know my father passed away August 2nd. And it was... like it would be, like you expect it to be, a devastating thing. And even in our situation, I had a chance to say goodbye. The last day I saw my father was July 5th, and so it was almost a full month before he passed away. And I honestly, I made sure I said goodbye because I sensed him going to pass soon. And in the same way, I almost didn't want to come back and see him worse. I wanted to be able to have what I call the good death, right? That experience of being able to say goodbye. You let somebody absolutely know you love them. And you say all the things you always wanted to say, right? Because they weren't taken from you instantaneously in a roadside bomb, because you got a chance. And you know, I for the month prior to his death, after I said goodbye to him, I spent the next 30 days, you know, obviously worried about when he was going to pass and kind of how my mom's going to handle it and what are we going to do for, you know, everything from his, you know, memorial service, funeral, whatever, to just, you know, just, I don't know, just dealing with him dying. And I heard this thing in my head, and some people can say it's God. Some people can say it's, I don't know, it's my own brain, my own thoughts. But I'm telling you, Sean, I heard in my head that for those of you who don't know, and I don't know if you even know this, Sean, but I started a new company called RSI. It's the Rockstar Superhero Institute. And the podcast is literally a chance to talk with awesome people like you who do what I call superhero things. Okay, I talk to rock stars and superheroes, and what's cool about you is you're both, right? You're no, but you're a guitar player, you're a musician, you've done a lot of rock and roll in your life, you hang out with them, but you're a superhero. You do superhero things, and it's my belief that people should do their best to be both. That you find your purpose, you find your passion, and you jump freaking all in. You go all freaking in, and have no plan B. Just have no plan B. Do what you love. Have no plan B. You'll have success. And Sean, you're doing that thing. With my father's passing, in my head, I heard, and I do believe this was literally like a message from God that said, Rob, when your father passes away, the essence of him will, in a sense, be, I don't believe in like I'm absorbing my father's soul or something like that, but that essence of the good parts of my father will continue with me upon his death, and they will act as a springboard, as a catalyst to fire my company off into the next phase where I'm supposed to be going. Okay, so August 2nd, I have the inaugural meeting of RSI, which is the business forum side of this company that you're listening to, the podcast today, located in the Seattle area. I have all these business professionals, these people I really, really trust and admire, and we're all sitting there, and we have a really good meeting. It's really impactful. It's a great start, and it feels really good. And I go home, and I tell my wife, hey, I had a really killer meeting. And she says, oh, Mom's been trying to get in touch with you. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, you know, she'd been calling me the week before and telling me, you know, Dad's, you know, really struggling and having a hard time. And she, you know, she was relying on me to just kind of, I don't know, talk her through and help her, you know. And I said, okay, well, I'll call her after dinner. And we sit down and we're eating dinner. And, you know, I finish dinner. And then there's two corn cobs. This is one of those weird things I remember, but there's two corn cobs over there, and I'm like, oh man, I love corn, and my dad loves corn, and I'm going to eat these corn cobs like for my dad, you know what I mean? And so I grab the corn, and I set it on my plate, and I butter it up, and salt it, and everything, and the phone rings. And I look down, and it's my mom. And I'm like, oh my God, my corn's going to get cold. Now that's my dark way of dealing with what I know is on the other end of that line.
Yeah.
And I pick up the phone, and my mom says, your father just passed, and I gotta go. And she hangs up. And I didn't eat the corn because, of course, I can't think straight now. But here's the point, Sean, is all those things I heard in my head, and I do believe they are divine, is that Lord told me, your dad's going to die, and that's going to be the catalyst that fires you. Well, he died the day my business started. And you can say, you know, coincidence and whatever. I choose to believe It's a godly, spiritual thing. I choose to believe that. And I'm going to take that with it because that tells me that I am on the right path. And I'll tell you, the hardest part about being here is it's terrifying when you know that you're compelled to do this thing that is not putting enough money in your pocket, but you know you're called and convicted to do it. I have no choice. And I know I blabbed for a bit, but the point being is you're doing what you're supposed to do. You have no choice, Sean.
I know.
And that's why we're talking today. You know, I know we started with heavy metal and roller coasters, but dude, you're doing your thing.
If you would have told me that, probably, I don't know, 5 years ago, I would have said, okay, yeah, you know, whatever. Because I always said, like I told you earlier, I've always been the one that I've been a very, very firm believer that if something happens, you caused it. And if something that you don't understand, you have to figure that out. If you can't understand it, then, you know, whatever. Right. But I'm telling you, the last, well, just to give you an example, like, so I was a volunteer with this thing from 2006 to 2012. And my birthday in 2014, 2012, we had a board meeting. And I don't even celebrate my own birthday. I really don't, okay?
Ever?
To me, I mean, it's just another number. I mean, although I did have a good one last week, but it's just like,
you did. You had a really good one last week.
Yeah. So it's just, I don't know. It's just, I've never been, I'm a firm believer that if you're young at heart, you know, I'm 45 now, and I see people that, as a matter of fact, I ran into somebody I graduated with when I was in Nashville by chance. I hadn't seen this guy in 26 years. And I run into people like that frequently. And when I see them, and I'm taking this as a compliment, but a lot of them will say, you know, I don't understand how's an age caught up to you, but it's because I live by the heart. I think that that there's something to say with that. You know, if you go with your heart's feelings, your gut feeling, that can get you through some stuff. So, absolutely. So we're in this meeting. In the studio that Anita Miller painted the portraits. We're having a board meeting. And right in the middle of the meeting, there's some stairs that lead down to the basement where we're all sitting. And I see Justin Hoffman, my buddy that in the paintings, his parents walk in, his mother and stepfather. And I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing here? And then I see my mother following behind them. And I'm like, oh, damn it. They have done something for my birthday. You know?
Yeah.
And they basically offered me the job. They said, we want you to quit your job at Nationwide and do this full time. Would you do it? And I was scared to death. I didn't know what to say. I mean, I was shaking, going, oh my God, I never once thought this could be like a career for me, right?
Yeah.
We had already hired Mike 8 months prior. And next thing I know, Justin's mother stands me up, and I'm probably going to really misquote this, but she said something like, for the last 7 or 8 years, you've been this cog in this machine, or you've been part of this to keep my son's memory alive. We want to let you know that Justin's got you covered. And then when she said that, she put on me and gave me one of his Marine camouflage jackets. Oh. And I knew instantly, right there, two things. Number one, this is what I'm supposed to do, and I can no longer fight. The reason why I'm doing it, I can't escape it, okay?
Yeah.
And I'll give you another example. But number two, it's not always the best thing to think with your mind. You got to think with your heart most of the time. And if you do that, you may not understand why you're doing something, but it will make sense in the long run, and you'll be like, oh, okay. So the only other example I have is I was supposed to be at another board meeting in 2011. And I decided not to go to the meeting because they're boring as hell. I'll be that, okay? You know how meetings are, right?
Yes, I do.
So I decided to go to Dayton, Ohio, which is about an hour away from where I live, to hang out with some friends who I hadn't seen in months. And on the way there, I got run over by an 18-wheeler in my little Honda Civic. I walked away with a scratch. The car was just totaled. I got really, really lucky. And that night when I called Anita and I said, maybe I was supposed to be there after all. And she says, those guys are watching out for you. I'm telling you, this is take that. Don't take that for granted. You were supposed to be here. You cannot escape this.
Yeah.
And
Destiny.
there's been a couple times. Yeah, there's been a couple times where I felt like I was going to walk away from this thing. And there's always something that pulls you back.
Yeah.
So the same with your company, man. Just what you just told me, it totally makes sense.
Yeah, I was at the meeting today. I was talking to the group, and I was talking about Mike Mangini auditioning for Dream Theater. And I'm sure you've watched that video. And
where he's crying.
He's crying. But what I love is they already knew, of course, what was going to happen, and he was going to end up being the drummer. So they edited it in a way that you sort of favor Mike throughout the documentary. But the best part to me, Sean, of that documentary is when he says, "Here's the thing, this is not a gig to me. This is a marriage. I'm looking for a marriage partner because it's his purpose." This is your purpose. I'm doing my purpose. I suck at this as a podcaster. I mean, I'm having a good time with you. Don't get me wrong. I lose my mind when I do this. It's like my train of thought goes everywhere. I struggle to stay on task. It's like I forget all my vocabulary. I resort to simple words because I freeze.
No, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, but I'm doing it because I love it. I get to talk to guys like you. I get to talk to Jorgen Munkeby, right? I get to talk to Ryan Van Puderoy, and I get to talk to killers, right? I get to talk to all these great people. And they're influencers, and they're positive, That's the one running theme of this podcast is whether I'm talking to a literal rock star, a figurative rock star, a literal superhero, a figurative superhero. It's about the heart. And I love that you said what you said, because it is. When we die, I say this every podcast, when we die, nobody's going to care about their car. Nobody's going to care about their big house, but they're going to be looking at their family. And they're going to say, I miss you. I love you. I'm so proud to be your son. I'm so proud to be your husband. Whatever you're going to say, right? You're going to say these things. You're going to think these things. And it's because people are the only thing that actually matters. Culture lies to you. Culture lies to you and tells you it's about money. It's about items, yes, stuff, cars, you name it. And trust me, dude, I freaking love cars. I would have a freaking 458 Ferrari, 488 now, right there in the garage, right next to me, if I could. And maybe someday I will. I don't know. But is it my destiny? I doubt it. I want to be around people, and I want to be around people like you. And to me, this is a movement, man. This is a movement. And it's my heart to get everybody out there, anybody who's listening, just let people like Sean impact you and choose to impact. That's the thing. This isn't about faith so much as it is about the heart, it's about people. Just go do the thing you've been built for. Go do it. It doesn't matter what anybody says. If you believe it to be true, it's for you. Go jump in, all passion, all conviction. And here's the thing, again, culturally in the United States, we're told that you're successful if we have money, right? If you make money, oh, well, Sean, I know you love it, but dude, how are you going to make money at it? Here's the thing. If you love it, it kind of stops mattering. Would you like to do this and have somebody pay you, I don't know, $500 a year? Well, of course you would. But maybe the $500 a year would distract you and take you away and pull your heart out and twist it up a bit and pour a little dark pepper on it, right? It changes the dynamic of what it is and who Sean is. And I'm sorry, you got to do what you're drawn to do. You have to do this. And so I agree with Anita. You're all in, bro. You're all in.
I said this. I did this. This kind of goes back to what you started the whole thing about the Discovery Channel stuff. I did this. I had this crew from National Geographic TV follow me around Cedar Point in 2004 during ACES convention. And one of the lines they used for me is I said, "This is no longer a hobby. This is a full-fledged lifestyle." And I meant that coming from the heart. This is in my heart. And now I don't do the coaster thing as much as I used to because of what I do now.
Yeah.
However, I fully believe that this is not a job for me. This is a duty. And like Anita Miller, she told me the day I met her, she said she doesn't feel like she was the first to be asked, so to speak, to do this. She just has this feeling that she was kind of on a list and people passed on it and didn't think about it and, oh, I can't do that. And she just had enough guts to say, let me put everything that I love on hold, my family, everything. So, because it's not about me, it's about helping others or making sure other people have like an emotional outlet to reflect.
Right.
And that's something that I have learned from meeting her and being part of this, that I'm done asking questions. There's so many things that happen that nobody believes. Everybody tells me, oh, you need to write a book about this stuff. And I try to do my best at documenting everything. But if I wrote something like that, there would be nobody that would believe anything.
Yeah.
Because they're just like, how can one person, number one, experience that, or a team can experience that? And number two, wait a minute, no, it's just paintings. It's just paintings,
right.
But it's not. If you would have told me 10 years ago you're going to quit your job and take art on the road full time, I would have said, "Oh, you live in Seattle. You've been, smoking something."
Yeah, it's all our fault because we have legal pot here.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just like, or Denver or something.
Yeah.
But it's like, it just. You said it earlier. You did the best description ever. Our biggest challenge is to get people standing in front of those things so we can share pictures, video, talk on podcast about this. But unless you're standing in front of something, and it just doesn't have to be the Eyes of Freedom. It can be anything that moves somebody. If you go down the 9/11, the Ground Zero Memorial, and see that, if that doesn't bring you to your knees and shake you up, then maybe you got to do some soul searching there, because things like that. So wow.
I haven't done that. That's actually another thing that of course I would love to, simply because it too is hallowed ground and it always will be. There's just so much sadness. It's just, here's the thing. To me, the difference between 9/11, the memorial for 9/11, and the memorial for the Lima Company, is the 9/11 memorial is about tragedy in an unprecedented way, at least to Americans, right? We've never really suffered terrorism. It's certainly not on a grand scale, and that was an epic scale.
Oh, yeah.
Shocking because, let alone the initial deaths with the planes, but then how is it possible that two giant buildings that are cornerstones of our largest city toppling at the whim of 19 terrorists? How is that possible? The thing about Lima Company is these were individuals who chose to put themselves in harm's way. And so to me, 9/11 is a place of massive sadness. The memorial. It's just sad. It's not like you walk up there and go, but I'm an American. I don't. I know there's people that do that. I don't feel that way. Walking in and seeing the Lima, memorial, reminded me that heroes really do exist, for an ideal. Those people died. Those people died for an ideal. That's it. They died. They weren't brainwashed. They couldn't. It wasn't like they couldn't wait to see pink mist because they got to shoot somebody in the head. Couldn't wait for them to make a racist statement against somebody who lives in the desert in Afghanistan. That wasn't the case. They were out there for an ideal. They were out there for good and for hope and for opportunity. We grew up in this country and we're jaded and we're expectant. We're actually all spoiled kids. We're all spoiled kids, even the best of us, because we live in this place that we didn't grow up on dirt floors in the middle of a desert, and our brother was killed by a jackal that came in the house and ate him in the middle of the night. I mean, that stuff really happens, man. You know. We didn't grow up in Nigeria where our daughters were taken away from us and had their genitals mutilated because women are possessions. You know, it's insane. We grew up in a country that we have microwaves and playing cards and Little House on the Prairie and an apple orchard across the street and 2 cars. And here's the thing: the whole Black Lives Matter thing right now crushes my heart too. And the last thing I want to do is get in a crazy debate where I paint myself into a corner. The last thing I want to do, the last thing anybody should say is, well, I have a lot of black friends, so I understand. No, I don't understand. I'm a white guy raised in relative middle class privilege. I never saw anybody that wasn't white until I was 12. Only on TV. I always lived in white towns, whatever that means, right? I just did. I grew up in Washington State, man. We're just, you know what I mean? And so I don't understand the plight of all these people, but it breaks my heart because they're people, man. You know, they're not bad. They're just people. Afghanis are not bad. They're just people. But what's happened is our ideal, and I really do believe it's good and right and just. Ultimately, our ideal as Americans are good, right, and just, and they have to go and either protect against or kill people whose identity is to destroy our identity. And that, too, breaks my heart. Because I believe all life is sacred. What I can't stand about... I'm going to get political here for a second. What I can't stand about both liberal and conservative agendas is they both think the exact opposite, to me, of what they should think. And that is, all life matters. What you find is the liberal agenda just can't wait to just keep abortion going, and the conservative agenda can't wait to kill everybody in prison. So the point is everybody wants to kill somebody. Shouldn't it be the opposite? Shouldn't we be protecting all life? And people can say, "Oh, well, the bad guys in prison, they deserve to die." Some of them.
Right.
Okay, I'm a human being. You rape my daughter, chances are I'm going to get you way before you go to prison. And I'm going to make it really slow and really painful. And I'm probably going to enjoy every second of it. But here's the thing. I cannot equate rape with, say, stealing a candy bar or selling marijuana to the kid in Miami. But I've made mistakes. And some of them are significant. I'm not in jail. I'm not in prison. And I'm not saying I should be. That's not the case. I shouldn't be. People are good, man. Everybody screws up. I just can't imagine. I mean, look, I'm going to go down the Hitler road, but I just can't imagine Hitler's parents just couldn't wait to raise him up so he'd kill Jews. That's
right.
Something somewhere, sometime in his life, something snapped. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that was. But that's so sad because everybody's good. They start out that way. They just start out that way. So I don't know. I don't know why I'm going off on such a tangent, but
no, I mean,
people.
Do you remember the band Death?
Yes, actually, I do.
I don't mean the punk band. I mean the Death band.
Yeah.
So you were talking about, you know, there's a line on one of their songs off of the album Spiritual Healing, off the song Altering the Future, and it's the giving and taking life will always be, and it's exactly those two different viewpoints.
Yeah.
The whole song's about that. And as soon as you said that, for whatever reason, that popped into my head.
Nice.
So,
Well, everybody go buy that album.
yeah, great album. So.
Well, I'm so sorry for like turning this into like a dark, depressing
No, you're good, man.
Place. I just really admire you, Sean, and I like your passion and conviction. So,
Thank you.
so what's next for you? What's next for Eyes of Freedom? I mean, you said you guys are booked out a couple of months. What are you doing in the interim? And do you have any hopes? What are you driving?
Well, right now we had a cancellation last week. We were supposed to be actually this week. We're supposed to be at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio, because the presidential debates were supposed to be there, and we have to be very neutral politically. We can't be one side or the other. We actually had Donald Trump's people call us want us to come to Iowa before he ran, and we had to postpone it because we had to cancel it because his people told us that he was going to possibly announce he was running. So we have to be very, very careful with stuff like that. So the debates were canceled and they're moved to wherever they took place last night. And so we have some time off. So we need that time off because logistically, we're still growing logistically. We developed a brand new system this year and we're still learning it. So we have an event in Newark, Ohio next in about a week. And then we go to this huge, it's a pumpkin show in Circleville, Ohio. 400,000 people come to it, and we did it last year, and it's amazing.
Wait.
Yeah.
A pumpkin?
A pumpkin show. The world's largest pumpkin show. It's like a festival.
With the Smashing Pumpkins, I was like, when are they drawing 400,000?
That would be really cool to get them to play there, though. But it's really well known in this part of Ohio. And, I don't know if you know, but the former guitar player for Faith No More, Jim Martin, he grows record-breaking pumpkins now, and I'm always been curious if he's ever attended this one. I'll have to check. But after that, we go to Idaho. We're going to be in Lewiston, Idaho, which is right across the river from your state, actually.
Yep.
On Veterans Day week, and then we have a couple other smaller ones, and then we end our year. But we're already next year. I think we're going to Alaska next year, so that'll be awesome.
Yeah. Are you going to come back to Seattle?
Hawaii.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't.
And maybe Hawaii. I don't know. We don't have any plans to go to Seattle, although one of the men in the paintings, Aaron Reed, the most popular Marine we have in the paintings for some reason, his father lives just north of Seattle, maybe about an hour, and I don't remember the town he lives in. I'll have to look. Okay. But he wants to see us up there, so as soon as we get the call or we get a hunch on a venue or event, that's how it usually happens. But it's going to be crazy, man. I mean, we're expanding now. We have a part-time office manager now because when we're on the road, logistics and getting back to people on phone calls is a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
But it's a good gig. It just we just got to take care of ourselves, in that equation of everything. And if we don't, that's when things get a little sticky, and you just got to kind of tread the water, Yeah. But it's all good.
There's a website for it, correct?
Yep, eyesofreedom.org.
.org. Okay. And I'm assuming, like any nonprofit, people can donate.
Yeah, we have a PayPal there, and then like a mailing address. Our headquarters address is my house right here, so we get donations here sometimes. Our Facebook and our YouTube are Lima Company Memorial. It's not Eyes of Freedom; it's Lima Company Memorial, and that's pretty much it. It's just on the road. It's three of us: myself, Mike Straley, and R&L Carriers, who's our transportation provider. They gave us a driver full time. And wait until you see. Oh, I got to send you pictures of the new truck we just got. It's unreal.
Really?
So yeah, it's beautiful. So we're excited. We're excited about what happens. I mean, even though we all of us, it's really strange. All of us feel this. The same thing that drew us to this project individually is the same feeling we feel when something big's about to happen, like the Rock on the Range thing. We just felt this like, wow, we have the opportunity to be in front of 40,000 people. And when you have 40,000 people chanting USA when you come out on stage, that's something you never forget, and that's a huge moment, right? Yeah. Well, we can feel that the next step is about to happen, and we don't know if it's with this new silent battle or if it's just going to be somebody we meet on the road. I mean, we were in Seattle because of Marine Week. Every year the Marines have a thing. We did Seattle, we did Phoenix last year, and this year we did Nashville. So next year it's in Denver, I think. So,
Okay.
but I would love to get back up to your area, man. I'd love it up there.
Yeah. It's pretty
really
amazing. It's
it really is.
Yeah. I live in a pretty beautiful place. Yes, it does rain as much as you guys think it does, but it is lovely and green and lush and moderate and all that stuff. So is there any way, you mentioned Pop Evil, bringing you guys out for the Rock on the Range shows. How did that happen, and is it possible that another band could sort of adopt this and, it actually incorporate it into a continuous stage show where it becomes something far bigger than it is?
Yeah, I mean, we thought about that. It's kind of strange when we just got a brand new board of directors, so we have to kind of re-educate them on stuff like that because some of the board members I don't think they were entirely impressed with us doing that at Rock on the Range because they're not from that background. They don't know that heavy music or rock music can be a release,
right?
And it can be very supportive. And so it was a little bit confusing, but the way that happened is Mike, who I travel with, was backstage at one of the shows and watching an interview with the singer, and the bass player of that band, Matt Dorito, saw Mike and he saw on his forearm he has the "Don't Tread on Me" flag tattooed on his arm. And Matt said, "Hey, man, are you a veteran?" And they started striking up a conversation. And Matt opens up his jacket, and he's got that shirt on.
Yeah.
So they started talking. Mike told him about the memorial. And then the band was like, "Hey, we have this song called Trenches. How hard would it be to bring this on stage when we do Rock on the Range?" And so I get this call at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's Mike. And he's like, "Dude, are you sitting down?" I'm like, "Well, I'm laying down."
Yeah.
But why? And he says, "Just picture it. Our paintings with Marines in dress blues on both sides and the 40,000 people and the whole stadium, and they go in the trenches." And I'm like, "Hey, that sounds really awesome, but do you have any idea the logistics of how to do that?"
Yeah.
It'd be almost impossible. And it happened exactly the way that he said. And then one thing I'll remember is we're backstage, in DMC, we're watching their set from the side of the stage before the paintings are out. They bring the paintings out, and I'm behind the paintings on the stage getting pictures from above. And DMC is next to me. And I grew up listening early rap before I got into metal.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So he was like a hero of mine. He's standing next to me, and he's all getting pumped up. And I lean into him, and I said, "Hey, man, you got to be really excited for this." And he told me, this shows you how cool a good guy is. He goes, "Oh, I'm excited, but I'm more excited about this," and he put it into those Marines, "than I am about me going out on stage."
Oh,
and
man.
He did that. And then after the show, we were all hanging out backstage, and he thanked every single Marine that was back there, gave us all hugs. And then I remember going up to Matt Dorito of Pop Evil, and I tried to tell him in words what it meant to have that experience. He's used to playing big things like that, so probably for him it wasn't a big thing. And I said, "Hey, man," and it probably came out like this, because I started getting
You're
emotional.
Excited. Yeah.
So I walked away, and he pulled me back to him and gave me this huge man hug, and he told me in my ear, "No, you cannot thank us. We have to thank you because you don't know what that meant to us."
Wow.
And to this day, they we almost duplicated it at Sturgis that year, but we had to cancel. And as far as other bands getting involved, we're open to anything. I mean, everybody's throwing like Five Finger Death Punch at us, saying they're very patriotic. They play for troops.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of making those wires cross.
Yeah.
And in our world, quite honestly, those wires cross more frequent by chance than they do by design.
Yeah.
We could try it all the time, but
well, I'm happy to help you. I don't know.
You've got connections.
I do. I have this weird ability to get to people too. It's just finding, talking to management and booking and figuring it out. If they're open to it. But yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Five Finger Death Punch because that's exactly the band I was thinking of. I think it would be perfect for this
and
thing.
Pop Evil's done many tours with them. And you there?
I'm here.
Okay. For a minute there, we froze up. Can you still hear me?
Oh, I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. There we go. We're back.
All right. Great.
So but yeah, I mean, it's real interesting because I mean, even just like the random moment of like Kelly Clarkson, like I'm not a big Kelly Clarkson fan,
Yeah.
and she was shooting a show at the State House on a really slow Sunday, and I was there,
Yeah.
and the State House came down and said, "We got a celebrity. Can you take this person around?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I took her around, and I'm like, "Please, please, please don't ask me what my favorite song by you is because I'm gonna have to answer like all of them or something."
Yeah. Yeah.
But but it just goes to show you that. It goes with what you were saying that yeah, they have all their items and they're rich and they're famous, but once they get in front of that or something like what we have, everybody's equal, and they're shrunk down to not having items and money. This is what matters.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that's what's really important about it and the like is that it reminds us we're actually all on the same field. We are all on the same field.
Yeah.
Right. The idea of being in a different echelon because of net worth is insanity. And
Yeah.
granted, we deal with it all the time, and man, I bump into people all the time that are significant net worth, and I do feel part of it might be how I feel, but I do feel like they sort of look down at me as though I'm not this uber net worth guy. And that's a bummer because, they were naked, dirty, wet, sticky, and confused when they were born just like me.
Yeah, I mean, you're born with nothing and you die with nothing.
Yeah.
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 And I always said that one of the sayings, and I swear I didn't steal this from a shirt, but I have seen it on a shirt. I remember we were both on Coaster Buzz for many, many years, this Coaster Forum. And I saw somebody had posted that, used it as their signature a while ago. But it was after I did my very first skydive, one of the first things I said is, everyone dies, not everyone lives.
Right.
And then I eventually saw it on the shirt. So maybe I subconsciously picked it up. But it's what I mean by that. If you're born here at A and you die at B, fill your life with, what a purposeful thing. Some people don't have that chance, or they ignore the chance.
Yeah.
And I feel sorry because there's a lot of potential that is missed because of stuff like that.
Yeah. I really do believe that, Sean, that we're all born to do something specific. For example, let's say you and I are both, I don't know, real estate agents. Okay? We just sell houses. Okay? The thing is the intangible that Sean brings is far different than the intangible that Rob brings. And we could both be extraordinarily successful and the like, but we're going to impact people in different ways because of those intangibles that are born into us that can't be explained, but they are us, that make us completely unique, right? They're our sort of psychic fingerprint. And it's just my belief. Yeah, you really have to choose to go all in. And it goes back to what I said a second ago. Just pick something, man. Figure out what really truly makes you happy. I love drumming. I love a lot of stuff. But I have to say that I've discovered in the last 5 years that regardless of how talented I might be as a musician or even connected, the fact is what I'm supposed to be doing is this. And I'm supposed to take chances, and I'm supposed to make mistakes, and I got to learn the hard way. How do you learn? By doing, right? So you just jump all in. You have no backup plan, and you just say, I'm determined to figure this out. And do I expect to be, I don't know, either Mark Maron in the podcast world or Howard Stern in the radio world? Well, of course not. Do I have aspirations to be them? No, I actually no. I have aspirations to be Rob, the very best impact player Rob is capable of being, whatever that means. And the thing is I may somehow figure out how to do this thing really well and become bigger than both of them.
Yeah.
But I also,
you never know.
Yeah, but I also might not. And the thing is I don't care either way. I just want to do this. I want to grow my institute because when I die, I want to be like Godzilla. Like I come into the world and I go boom with my foot and it creates this giant ripple, right? These big, huge waves of water that just kind of wash around the world. right? And then they catch up to each other after, I don't know, 85 years. And they keep going because that stomp is so great. I want to believe that that's what guys like you and I, what we do. We do it in a way that might not seem on the surface to be impactful and profound and powerful, but it's actually the opposite. It's giant. It's ginormous. And,
absolutely.
And so you just got to jump in. And so anybody listening, if you wonder what you're supposed to be, where you're supposed to go, I mean, send me an email, rob@rockstarsuperhero.com. Send Sean an email. You got to tell him I can't remember your email address. But
Irish Coast at Gmail.
What was that?
Irish Coast at Gmail.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's right. But guys like us, we love and we love and we love and we live and we're ferocious about our life and where we're going. And it means we are authentic and risking everything. And our friends and our family support us because they realize, wow, you're in your sweet spot and you just got to go. You just got to go, Before we stop recording, I like to ask my guests this question. And so I believe that nobody in the world is 100% perfect at anything, right? I mean, we're human, right? We're fallible.
Absolutely.
We make mistakes. I like this term. So you've heard of the 80-20 rule, right?
The what rule?
The 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule. So the idea is that, right, let's say there's 100 people in a room. 20 of them are going to do 80% of the work because they're the leaders. These are the followers, okay?
Yes.
Well, I believe inside of the 80-20 rule is another 80-20 rule, meaning inside the top 20, there's another 80-20. So the top 5% are doing something. And then inside of that is another one, okay? And so I call it's my own, I just made it up. It's called the 97-3 rule, okay? I believe everybody in the world, when they're full in, fully focused, completely passionate, driven to whatever they're driven towards, they're still only 97% badass. They're just 97%, right? And they'll never, ever actually be the 3%. They can't because nobody can be 100, okay?
Yep.
But what makes you better, what fills the gaps is people. Your friends, your peers, your family, they bring the 3% that does not exist in you. You're just not born with it. Nobody's born perfect, right? We're born to be in our space and to go for it. But even then, we're still missing that 3%. Okay? And again, this is my theory.
Sure.
It's my theory. So, with that theory being put out there, what does Sean not do well?
Wow.
Take your time.
Say, I've never once been asked that. I think I think sometimes one thing I do not well is even though I may not show it, if I don't succeed in something, it'll drive me nuts. It goes back to that kind of engineering mind that I have. And so, for instance, if I can't get something to work or if something didn't happen, it can be anything, like writing a piece of music and you're like, damn, I can't, this isn't working. I beat myself up over that. And I know I shouldn't. And I know my friends tell me that, my family's told me that, you need to take a chill pill and just, it's not the end of the world. Because I've had some bad stuff happen to me. And again, it just puts you right back in perspective. But as far as, I try to treat everybody with respect. That golden rule that you're growing up with. If you're nice to others, then they'll be nice to you.
Right.
But definitely, I think I could be. I don't know. That's a hard one. I think the one thing I wish I don't do as well is accept failure. Like probably I should, maybe
accept failure.
And not that I'm a. Yeah, I mean, you got to remember, growing up, it was always different. I didn't grow up the same way. I mean, just naturally, I'm left-handed, so I got kicked out of a band for being left-handed. Okay, so it's like I'm serious. So it's like I've always kind of had that 3% to me is stuff like that. It's beyond. It even goes deeper than the families and the friends and peers and all that stuff. I mean, that's a great way to put things. But I never really thought about that. I mean, just right off the top of my brain, accepting failure, I beat myself up too much, I think. So what about you?
Oh my gosh, that's unfair, dude. You're not supposed to turn it around on me.
I'm sorry. We don't have to. We don't have
No,
to.
that's
But
cool. That's cool. That's cool. Okay. I raise you $12. There's actually a lot of things I don't do well. Probably my biggest weakness as a person is just lack of patience. Right. I'm not a very patient person. I don't know. When it comes down to actually doing things, though, I mean, I tend to equate them with like business ventures or the like. So, what don't I do well? I don't think I manage people well, and here's why. I love people. I mean, I love people stupidly. I'm just all in with people in general, right? I'll give everybody like 9 shots. You know what I mean? Like, here's your chance.
Right.
Oh, you stabbed me. Okay, just don't stab me again. You know what I mean? I'm that guy. But let's use business as an example. If I were to hire you, it would be a bad choice, and here's why: you and I are too close. We're too similar. We have the same strengths and probably the same weaknesses. And as a business owner, I need to hire my weaknesses, right? I need to partner with people that fill my gaps. So there's that 97-3 rule. I am terrible at doing that. Because I want to hang out with people just like me, right? I mean, our peer groups are people like us. They're people who enjoy the same things, that have the same sort of personality, the same sense of humor, right? I don't want to hang out with people that aren't like me. So I tend to hire people like me, and that is a terrible choice for business. Because, well, you get the same things done, and then you wonder why your business doesn't grow, right? Or, I had an assistant. I love this lady. She's just awesome. I'd go away on vacation, and it was like, I mean, nothing gets done while I'm gone. And it wasn't because she was blowing my my business off, but because she handled the same things I handled in the office, and they were. They weren't customer maintenance things. They were like going and finding new clients, etc. And you'd think, well, that would mean I'd get new business. But the thing is I need somebody to manage the existing business so it doesn't go away. I mean, you come from the insurance business. And so when I was running an insurance company, that was the problem. I'd go away and it was like, okay. And now I'm like, all of a sudden I'm 3 months behind again. It's like starting all over. So I've never been good at that. It's because I like people so much. I want to be around the cool ones, outside of that, I can't play guitar.
Wow.
I can't. I can play one. I know how to play one chord, but I don't even not even kind of. I can sing. I can play a little bit of piano, and of course I can play drums.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, I would love to be a better drummer. I've only played drum for a few times. I'm a great car drummer, meaning doing everything. But as far as getting behind a kit, we were displayed at some I guess, and you would know this term. It was like a rock church in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And they had a drum set on stage. Like we walked in. I'm not kidding you. We walked into this place and it was they fired up the fog machines.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell? We got to clear this fog out. We can't get this moisture around the paintings. So we had to wait an hour and a half while it cleared out. But once it did, it was like, oh my God, there's a stage and there's a guitar and there's a drum set.
Yeah.
And Mike's like, dude, get on the drum set.
Yeah.
So I think I played like a Lacuna Coil song, something real simple. And I was like, oh my God, I need to get a kit. And everybody has taught me how to getting a kit because, and this could be another thing I don't do too well is I don't know my limits. And I'm not a middle ground guy. It's either screw this or everything. And sometimes that can catch up to you. And if I would have a kit, I would just go balls out like Peter Criss, drums.
Why did you have to pick Peter Criss? Are you kidding me, Peter Criss? I would be like Peter Criss.
No, but just as far as like crazy, I know it's bad, Mangini or something.
No, I know.
But it's just, it's like now I'm on this kick that I want to get more guitars. I want to get an 8-string guitar now, and I want to do some covers with 8. And I'm like, wait a minute, I have to stop because I don't have the time to divulge it. I've been recording something on Logic Pro. I took my guitar down to Nashville, which sounds like a song title, but I went down and started just playing some stuff in Logic. And I try to do it in different cities, just record a little bit in different cities. And now I'm trying to figure out how to program drums because I'm not a drummer. Oh. And I'll figure it out. However, the problem is it gets me frustrated again. This goes back to the original type of thing. And I beat myself up to the point of where I'll get just damn aggravated. And what actually calms me down the most, and my team I work with, it took them a long time to realize this because they were really concerned for me, is if we're in a 3-mile window from where I live, like if we're displayed 3 hours away, I'll drive home every single night and go back the next morning for work. Huh. And everybody's like, that is insane. Why would you do that? But the reason I do that is because I play music. It can be the most mellow new age stuff like Tim's story, right, or it could be the heaviest stuff in the world, but it clears my mind. I can scream my bloody head off and I feel better. And whether I like it or not, obviously us talking about what I do, it's a heavy subject matter. Yeah. And I have to clear my mind. So that helps me out. That's one way I deal with that stuff.
You got me thinking though. It's funny. I ask you what your weaknesses are. And I guarantee you, most people listening to this podcast would say, I wish I had those weaknesses, which is the desire to do better. It's just you desire so strongly. It's a frustration for you, but it's actually an impressive thing because you want to be better. I was expecting a radically different answer, like I don't cut hair well, or you know what I mean. I don't cook, or I'm a terrible housekeeper, or something. You know what I mean? Just some sort of
in organization. If you could see the rest of my table, because this is where I do kind of all my work, for the memorial. There's piles of papers over here to the right and stuff like that. So organization, it's really weird. I have really bad organizing stuff unless it's something I have to organize, meaning my computer room in the other room is organized to a T. I bought this huge ceiling to wall kind of shelf, and I have discs in there of all the photos I take, of the music. Everything's in its own category. I bought a label maker and everything's labeled correctly. But then you see my table here and there's just piles of paper, like a stack of paper here. It's no order. And I wish I could get better at that because it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. I admire you, buddy. I really do.
I admire you too, dude. I really do. I knew, now correct me if I'm wrong. There's certain people that you cross paths with in life that when you meet them for the first time, it feels like you've known them for 20 years.
Yeah.
And you're definitely one of those people in my life, for sure.
Yeah.
We hit it off just like that. And obviously we kind of knew each other through the coaster forums and stuff like that, but it's rare that there's people like that. I mean, I'm fortunate that I've met several just for what I do, but it's still extremely rare.
Right.
I could not talk to you after this podcast for 20 years. I hope that's not the case, but you know what I mean? And I could talk to you and we'd pick up, because we hadn't talked to each other in quite some time before, probably last week. I mean, we texted. It's a while.
Yeah, we talked in November because I heard the new 12-Foot Ninja song, One Hand Killing, and I was so freaked out I had to talk to you about it.
It was awesome. Thank you so much for this.
It's such a good song. It's so good.
You've turned me on to so much good music, man. You really have. And that's awesome. There's only probably 3 other enthusiasts I know through this club that I can talk on a musical level.
Yeah.
I mean, you're definitely high up there because you're turning me on the stuff that's right up my alley. But, it's all good, man. There's no complaints. Who knows what the next path will be?
Yeah.
You just don't know, and you have to accept that in order to grow, I think.
Yeah. I think you've probably heard this, but you need to go through pain to grow, right? I mean, that's why we have growing pains. That's why they're called growing pains. You don't learn on a beach. It might be really nice to be on a beach, But you don't learn. You learn to get to the beach, and with that, you just have to embrace the difficulty. And to me, the harder something is, the more it validates that I'm on the right path. And I know that sounds insane. So I have twin boys that are a little over 3 years old, and Leland and Alexander are absolutely just heartwarming little guys. They're just sweet, sweet boys, but they are so radically different as twins. And granted, everybody's heard this, right? You get the what I call the good twin and the bad twin, right? The tall twin, the short twin, whatever. They're both quite similar in some ways, but the attention that they want to get from their mother is very different. Leland he's a lover and he's a sweetheart, but he's pretty simple, pretty easy to please. He just wants to know he's there, and he wants that acknowledgement, but he's not clingy. Alexander is very, very clingy. He whines a lot. He complains. He's very, very difficult, and a lot of people would say, shut that kid up, because he's whiny. It's really kind of annoying sometimes. But I choose to believe that my son, Alexander, the difficult one, is destined for something so incredible and outrageous because he's so challenging. It's the training ground. I just,
Yeah.
And it's a training ground for me too as a parent. How to deal with a personality that I just clash with, right? That just makes me bonkers in the morning when he wakes up terribly. Leland wakes up and it's like butterflies, right? It's just all perfect and easy. Get up and go potty, okay, daddy. And then Xander's just for like an hour. It just shut up.
Which one was burned?
Xander.
Because I remember he seemed very quiet.
Yeah.
When we were prior to that, like he kept to himself.
Yes, and he's still that way, but he's quiet. But when he wants, needs, expects, he's like, right? He's just absolutely, I'm over here, and now I want you to listen to me. And he makes you, you will deal with me, right? He's that guy. I can't wait to see what that turns into. You know what I mean? I just can't wait to see.
It's going to be good.
Yeah. And so yeah, I do believe that difficulty, it should always flip things on its ear. I equate my life to, okay, I know we're kind of going on crazy tangents here, but I believe in this. You hear all the time that people say, okay, like the stock market, okay? There's like 6 banks out there that get to keep all the money, and everybody else loses money. You invest in the stock market, chances are you're going to lose your money. And the chances are really, really high that you will, because the market makers that manage your money control the markets. You just don't know that. And, most people lose their shirts over a long period of time. And they say, oh, man, look at all the money you had made if you just put it in a savings account. Well, that's not true either. Meanwhile, bankers make money hand over fist. If you play the opposite side of the market, which is what happened in the movie The Big Short, which is a true story. If you haven't seen that, any listeners out there
have not, but
you should absolutely check it out. It's an incredible movie, and it's very much the truth. It's exactly how not only it happened in 2008, 2009, but how it still happens today, and how it happened before 2008 and 2009. Is the money is made on the other side of the market. The money is made in the inverse. So when everybody else is jumping in saying, oh man, I don't want to miss this chance to make money, you've already missed it. The money's made when it looks like it's losing. The money's made because the guy with the money comes in while it's losing, starts to prop it up, buys a lot of shares at a very, very low price. And when it gets up a little above halfway, a lot of social networking, CNN, you name it, everybody's involved, and all of a sudden they've got word out, and so people jump in. They're like, oh my God, I don't want to miss out on this opportunity. I'm going to get it at $35 a share, and I think it's going to go to 70. And then lots and lots of news happens, and all of a sudden it's at 72, and they're like, oh my God, I can't miss out on 72. I got to get in. And meanwhile, the guy that bought it at 40 cents is selling millions of shares to you because you're an idiot. Right?
Yeah.
And then you lose your money when the market crashes because it's what happens. And he goes back and does it again. You have to live your life in the inverse in everything you do. And that's why doing the right thing, doing what matters, doing what you feel called to do is way more important than anything else. You have to live your life in the inverse. So I like to think of things this way. Let's say I'm driving a truck and I'm going to, I don't know, you don't live here in the Seattle area, but I'm driving 30 miles down the road and I've got to get there by 6. Okay, I've got to be there by 6. And there's a really terrible traffic jam, and I know I'm not going to get there until 6:30. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call the customer and say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be there till 6:30." But I really truly believe this, Sean, and you're probably going to roll your eyes. I believe I'm not supposed to be there until 6:30, meaning that everything happens exactly how it's supposed to. So when people say, "Oh, kismet," or "Oh, circumstance," or "Oh, coincidence," I know it's easy to quantify it as that. I don't believe it's that at all. I believe that I was not supposed to be there until 6:30 because if I had tried to get there by 6, maybe I would have been run over by a semi.
No, I understand what you're saying. Absolutely. And then it's so incredibly odd that you say that because I have fallen, and I don't want to use the word by chance because that goes against what we're saying right now. But I have been in the right place at the right time so many times. I'm very, very fortunate for that to happen. It can be the most random, odd thing ever, but everybody just says, "How does this happen to you all the time?"
Right.
But I think it happens to everybody. They just don't realize it. I mean, I've had a flight with Hatebreed. The day after I was with you in Seattle, I flew home. I was flying from Seattle to Detroit, and 2 rows in front of me, I think you remember this when I was on Facebook,
Yeah.
Quiet Riot was in front of me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the most random things, you know,
Yeah.
that, I don't know,
Yeah.
very weird.
Well, you know, I don't know. I don't know how it's all working, and I'll never understand the, you know, what I like to call the grand design, how it all works. I don't know.
Right.
I'm not God. I'm not a creator. I'm not.
We're not supposed to know.
No. But I am good with knowing in my heart of hearts that everything in me says I'm supposed to be doing what I'm doing, and you're supposed to do what you're supposed to do. And so it's my hope that anybody of the hundreds of listeners, I don't have thousands, I don't have tens of thousands, but hundreds, and I hope to have tens of thousands, if not millions soon. Anybody that discovers this podcast that actually sticks all the way through it and listens to all hour and 2 hours of it goes, "Oh my God, that's exactly what I needed to hear," right? To me, it's right up there with if I can save one life, I'm good. You know,
Yep.
Do I want to save a lot of lives? Of course. Do I want to do a lot of things? Absolutely. Do I want to have a ton of impact? Yes. Do I not want to die anytime soon? Absolutely, because I really like my life and I love my wife and I love my kids. All 6 of my beautiful kids. But I love the idea that I can impact person after person after person, and I love the fact that at least in human. I don't even know what the word is, that this podcast will live in, you know, sort of somewhat perpetuity, right? It's uploaded to the internet and to the world in a sense forever, right? As long as the world's around.
Absolutely.
I really like that idea. I like the idea that the podcast I did about my father, you know, that 47 minutes of talking about my dad is in the ether forever. I love that. I love that my interview with Ryan is in the ether forever. You know,
you're giving me chills, dude, because that is exactly, literally, so much part of my life. My YouTube channel, okay?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's out there. I'm done with it. I never have to watch that again.
Yeah.
What I created, but it's out there. It's just floating for someone to pick up.
Yeah.
It's like us beaming a signal out into space, hoping that we hear something back. You know.
Yeah.
And you're like me, you don't do it really for reaction. You do it, I think, to get it out.
Yeah.
and reaction's always pleasant.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, can I just share with you something real quick?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so the first time I ever saw the Eyes of Freedom affect somebody was the first weekend we were open, and I saw this Marine walk in, and he was with his whole family, and then very, very, very quickly, he went to every portrait by just very quickly. Okay, this, and then left. And then he came back by himself 2 hours later, right before we closed, and was on his knees in front of each portrait, crying heavily.
Wow.
And I went to go check on him, and I patted him on the back, and he put his hand up like, I'm fine. And then when I saw that, I knew that this was going to be something big. Now, the way I look at that is just because that one instance, I saw this change the life of somebody, okay? To me, it was successful, right?
Yeah.
So you've heard the term where you're living on borrowed time. I think this exhibit is exactly opposite. It's living on accumulated time, meaning there's so much of that happens, and we're affecting so many lives. Now we're saving lives with it that it's just going to, it's going to be like a jiffy pop. It's just going to keep going and going and going and going and going.
Yeah,
and that's the same. And I think that literally is what's going to happen here with your podcast. You're going to get the one person. You're going to have, let's say you get 10,000 subscribers here really soon.
Yeah.
There's one person in that list of subscribers that's going to hear something, and it's going to change their life so much that it's going to be the next Jiffy Pop, and it's going to bring you along with it, I think. You know what I mean? It's just like, I love moments like that.
Yeah.
So
I like moments like that too. I'm hoping you're right. It does matter to me, and I mean, just like what you're doing, it does matter. Yeah, I know we could talk in circles about this forever and ever. It just matters. People matter.
You said something about one of your faults, so to speak, is you're not a patient person.
Yeah.
The best advice, and I definitely think that patience is one of the better things. I mean, however, the best advice I would give you is don't get frustrated. Just wait it out, because it's gonna happen. I mean, some of this, and this is not a bragging thing, anything, but now I get a second income from my YouTube channel because I had a couple videos go viral, not because of me, but it's the same reason. It went out and just kind of did its own thing.
Yeah.
So I think that happens. You just got to be patient with it.
Yeah, yeah.
There's so many people out there that say, "Oh, I made this amazing video and it's only got 5 views. Oh man, I'm a failure." No, just be patient.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's interesting, Sean. There was a musician in Portland. His name is Dan Reed. So if you were from Portland, you would know Dan Reed was supposed to be the second coming of Prince. I mean, he was the real deal in Portland. Insanely popular in the mid '80s. He got a record deal. I don't remember who with, maybe Atlantic in '85 or '86, and released his first album in '88. If you go on YouTube, you can find him. It's a song called "Ritual." By the Dan Reed Network, and it's very '80s, right? It's very, you know what I mean? It's got all the '80s keyboard sounds and all that stuff. And they dressed like Prince. I mean, the whole thing. But I'll never forget something Dan said when he was interviewed, and it's not life-changing sort of concept. He said people ask me all the time, how do I write my songs? And he said, I just keep writing. No matter what. If it's terrible, I have no idea because they're all precious to me. But I keep writing because eventually somebody will hear it and go, oh, I love that. And that changes everything. That's
perfect. I don't know how much you are into YouTube. I mean, obviously you have a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
But there's a really big YouTuber that lives probably a half an hour from me named Roman Atwood. Okay. And he does all these pranks and stuff. But he helped another YouTuber reach 3 million subscribers by 3 words. Oh. And it was upload more content. And that guy did that, and now he's got 3 million people following him. Okay? So it's the strangest thing. I think, like you just said, I think about Dan Reed is the more and more you do these, as difficult as they may be to do, it's going to happen. I firmly believe that.
Yeah.
This is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
This is what you're supposed to do.
You know, a guy came up to me the other day at the coffee shop. I was in town and I was getting ready to go into my day job, and I see this guy all the time. His name's Monty, and he goes, "Oh, hey, Rob," and he doesn't even ask me a question. He just says, "Oh, hey, Rob," and I go, "Oh, hey, Monty," and he comes over, puts his hand on my shoulder, and he says, "Keep going." And I was just like,
There you go.
Whoa, you know what I mean? It just keep going, you know? And he doesn't even know what's in my head, right? Like, it just felt like the hand of God touching me, you know what I mean? But it was really intense, really really powerful and important. I needed to hear it at that moment. So, before I let you go,
Sure.
any music you're listening to that you want to turn people on to?
Oh,
my
God.
It could be anything, because I have a band that I'm absolutely crazy about that does not fit into the hard rock, heavy metal music that you and I listen to at all.
Well, okay, so here's the strange thing about my music. I pretty much love every type of music other than, and this is the strangest thing, okay, but I'm not a huge fan of country and I'm not a huge fan of rap. Okay,
Understood.
even though those were my kind of gateway drugs in the music, both of those, okay? And ironically, they're very similar in aspects, even though they don't sound anything. But having said that, I listen to a lot of new age when, like, if I'm going to sleep, or if I'm on the road and can't sleep, I listen to a lot of new age or ambient stuff to knock me out, and I love that side of music. But Mike, who I travel with, we were down in Florida once, and I was playing him Epicloud by Devin Townsend.
Oh, so good.
Specifically the song Grace, okay? Yeah. And Mike's not been he wasn't really a metal guy. Do you hear that, by the way, when someone texts me?
I just heard that. I hadn't heard it until now.
Okay, it's a coaster enthusiast.
How dare you, sir?
yeah. So I'll get back to him. But so anyway, I'm playing him Grace, and he was just like, "Oh my God, what is that? Is that double bass?" You know, I was explaining him technical aspects about the song, right?
Right.
So he says, "Okay, I'm going to play you something," and most people don't know I listen to this, but when I work out, it's very rhythm oriented, and it gets me pumped up. And he played me a bunch of trance music, okay? Oh. And I never listened to that. It's your classic,
yeah,
with keyboards and stuff. And I don't know if it was just a moment. The sun was setting. We were driving from Miami area to Tampa. And it was just everything was just really surreal, and the music added to it. So I went on iTunes and bought a bunch of like trance compilations, and I love them. Okay. And it goes against everything that I like about music as far as creation and stuff. But when I go and like, if I take a nap during the day, I'll have that playing slightly like off in the distance.
Nice.
And it actually alters my dreams.
Wow.
Okay, it plays a part in my dreams. And having said that, the new Devin Townsend album, Transcendence, has been doing that to me.
Which track?
Yeah,
all of it?
Mainly, usually the first 6 or 7, but Higher.
Yeah,
actually got me through a really crappy week last time. That track in particular, and that's how they ended their set last week in Columbus. They ended with Higher. I thought they were going to end with Grace. They actually ended with Higher. Wow. And when I'm in a dream, and we could talk about the dream world in a whole other podcast. I'm telling you, I have this weird thing with dreams.
No, I do too. I have some crazy ones to share with you.
Oh, I mean, well, I have dreams, and then I travel someplace.
Yeah, lucid dreams. Yeah.
Lucid dreaming. It's been going on for like 20 years, but that music will bleed into that and enhance the surroundings. It's pretty cool. So So definitely the new Devin Townsend, the new Lacuna Coil I really like. As far as music that wouldn't be, let's see, Surgical Meth Machine. Have you heard the?
No, but I love that scary name.
It's Al Jorgensen's side project.
Okay,
he just created.
From Ministry.
Yes, it is some of the most crazy sounding stuff you will ever hear in your life.
Okay.
It just came out like a month or two ago, and I'm a big Ministry and Al Jorgensen fan, and I was just like, I have to download this. And actually, I was in Nashville, and I listened to it don't try to listen to it before you go to sleep.
Yeah.
Because it's so intense. It's really good though.
Really.
But highly recommended to check it out. Very, very extreme. So just be warned.
No, that's awesome. Well, I love you, man, and I'll make sure that when I put the show notes together for this, I'll put all the information on there so people can check out Eyes of Freedom and learn more about Luna and the memorial. And I'm telling you, anybody listening, make your way to go see it. And when you do go see it, take a big breath. It's really intense. And go shake Sean's hand. He's doing important work, and he's committed to it. It's a life for him, and he's doing it in honor and memory of those that have come before us and gone before us, and it means a lot. So I hope you'll support him, and I just appreciate you so much, buddy. You're such a good guy. And
Thank you.
I'm actually going to end this differently than I normally do. Normally,
Okay.
I end the podcast. We say goodbye, and then I bring up Shining. Most people don't know that the opening music and the closing music of my podcast is a song called Gore-Tex Weather Report by the Norwegian band Shining. I love that song. I love it. I love it. I love it. I think it's a perfect intro, and it's perfect exit music. But today I'm going to end with a really mellow band. A lot of people aren't familiar with this band. I discovered them. Again, I blame it on YouTube. I was fortunate enough to have one of those moments that YouTube said, "Hey, you like X? Why don't you check out X?" And I listened to this song, and it was so beautiful and bittersweet. It actually made me tear up, and I thought, wow, that's just lovely. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to end with this song tonight. It's a band from New York called the Hi Hi's. They actually originated in Australia, and they live all over the world when they're not recording or touring. But they are a duo. And this song is called Open Season. So I hope you relax, enjoy, and if you love this band as much as I do, go buy their CDs. They have two. They have Open Season, and the latest release was called Cascade. It came out earlier this year. And talk about introspective and stellar music. You got to check it out. So this is called Hi Hi's Open Season, and thank you to my friend Sean. I love you, dude. I love you, love you, love you, man.
Love you too, man.
And
Love you too, dude.
I appreciate you so much. And we're gonna do this. So hopefully it'll start without. Yeah, so beautiful. Just listen to this. Yeah, so good.
Get on your knees in the fire. You can leave it all in your mind. It is all in your mind. It is call in the backseat a friend. It is really all in your mind. It is all in your mind. get